All right, quilt people, how are you? I am doing super well. I'm excited about today's topic, how to fix yourself, because I feel like we kind of need a bit of a wrap up, right? Everywhere that we've been up until this point, what has happened, what are the lessons that we've learned, and kind of like what I've been able to figure out as I go along on this thing. So let's get started. Okay, so the first topic that we talked about was being a solid container for yourself. Remember that? All that work that we put into in terms of wrapping ourselves up with our own emotional cords, right? So that we're a solid container for ourselves, and all the softness, right, lives inside. But the external needs to be a little bit thicker, a little bit more firm, right, in order to endure the world. And that was kind of the first exercise that we went through in terms of identifying your own personal container, right, energetically speaking, and what lives inside that container. That was lesson number 1. And then we went on to explore love, right? Because it's a bit of a tricky topic sometimes when we're talking about how to be the most loving towards the world, but also towards ourselves, and what does that mean? And in here, the one thing that I've learned about love the most is that love is defined as the absence of judgment. So where am I being judgmental? Where am I off in my expression of love? And remember how much we went through all of that in determining love for ourselves versus love for others, and where are the boundaries? Because I didn't want to be just this person who's just like this expression of love who's also a doormat, right? I didn't want to have that be leading the way. I wanted, like change. I wanted to affect, better thinking in the world. And I didn't feel like I could do that originally from a place of just having love for all. Remember, it was very much love, but with boundaries. And that's where I was when we first started exploring that. Then we went on to the topic of others. Others. Yeah, not a fan. Right? Others are tricky, and that's where we often get tripped up, especially with people who have either a history, of abuse, or who just have anxiety of being around others, and what that means to us, and how can we incorporate, again, the love that we have for ourselves versus, the love for others, and where is that line? And remember, I just went back and I was just working through all of that, and again, like taking every single thought construct that I had and breaking it down, and every single fear that I had and breaking it down in terms of like, where am I on, these subjects. Then after others, we went through frustration and anger and started to identify that those things aren't bad. Frustration and anger aren't inherently bad, right? Frustration, anger, and pain. Those are the 3 things that we really started to break down to discover their purpose. What is the purpose of frustration? The purpose of frustration is to tell you when it's time to let go. That you've done your work. It's time to let go and let God, work it out, because we have to work in conjunction with the intelligence of the universe in order to move things along quickly. If you look at the intro video when you first come to this channel, it's on why people get stuck. Right? And we talked about that in terms of how we stand in our own way, right? By not working in conjunction with everything that we have in terms of our decision making to move us forward. So the purpose of pain was to identify when we're off, when the universe is telling us, don't go that way, go that way. And that the universe always speaks to us, but it speaks to us in a manner that we're maybe not used to. What are we looking for? Some kind of burning bush? Some kind of omnipotent voice from God? No, God speaks to us by way of pain. And that's the intelligence of the universe telling us that that isn't the right way, right? So we had the purpose of frustration, the purpose of pain, right? The purpose of anger. The purpose of anger was to alert us to when our personal boundaries have been crossed. And not that we get to keep that boundary, but that alerts us to where our boundary is. So when we experience anger, we have to listen to that. Do you see a pattern here? So much of it is about listening. Listening to what you're being informed with by the intelligence of the universe that lives within you, that is telling you things, right, that we need to listen to frustration, to let go, to listen to anger. That's where my personal boundary is and you're crossing it. I need to take a look at that, right? The purpose of pain. Don't go that way. Go that way, right? And listening to us and getting right within ourselves so that if we're truly going to be master and commander of us, that all of this information, including the information being delivered to us by way of painful things, serves a very real purpose. We then went on to study the exercise of Me 100. Remember that? And how we can light ourselves up. And that there's certain activities I found that I was doing that I couldn't help but experience joy in doing those things. And every time I did those things, I could light myself up. And it was in that process of discovering that I could light myself up, that that's not reliant upon somebody else, that I started to chip away at my own personal happiness, didn't I? Right? That I could throw myself into joy anytime I wanted just by doing a few certain things. And I was like, oh, that's a me thing. I am responsible for my own personal happiness and joy. And I started to find certain levers in my life, right, that I could start to pull in order to put myself into a state of joy no matter what else was going on, right? So that was Me 100 and Light Your Lights. Remember those two videos? And discovering all the different ways that we can, kind of bring back and reclaim our energy and ourselves and what we want to experience, not to default to what is happening and the associated feeling with that. Right? Then we went on to started to study any energy signatures, right? What is the energy signature of joy? What is the energy signature of me? What is the energy signature of our president? What is the energy signature of that company? What is the energy signature of that thing I'm buying? Right? And that everything has an energy signature. And when we start to look at it from that standpoint, we can actually gain a lot more information about the things that we're looking at, including ourselves in the mirror. What's my energy signature? What's my energy footprint? What am I bringing and leaving into the world? Right? We started to really look at identifying things, not by how they look, not by how they feel, right? But by their energy signature, right? How does that resonate in the world? How does that make you feel? Then we started to connect with the Love Bus. Remember that? And that was an extension of being our own personal container, but that was our own personal container being taken out into the world, right? Remember that? We're like, oh, hey, QAnon, how's it going? And we're just driving by in our little love bus of democracy, loving everybody. Hey, how you doing? And so that we could start to become a monk in the world, so that we can function in and out in the world in difficult spaces with difficult conversations and not be thrown. Because we're on our love bus, right? And we get to determine who else is on the love bus, but more importantly, who's not on the love bus. And that's when we really started to dissect being centered in self versus being self-centered. That's when we really started to separate, because that's the interesting thing about this work. The more you get into it, the more you recognize that you're trying to be master and commander of you, not master and commander of the world. That's when things really started to shift for me. when I started seeing the war that was happening up here, and that everything that's going on in the news and in the world not only is just there to inform me of where my work is, but to inform me of how to celebrate things that I don't understand. Ooh. So that you can get to the point of being so separate from the world and the craziness of others that you can actually celebrate the crazy. Right? Oh, yay, go world. Oh, yes, North America, we're doing what now? Okay, let's go. And you can celebrate all that crazy because all that crazy is necessary in our evolution, and that we're right on time, and that we're in good care in all things. And it's developing that level of trust. Remember when I first discovered trust and how big that just felt to me? I mean, it was just awesome that I could, on my own say so, trust in everything that's going on, that everything is in good care, and that I don't have to take on the world, I just have to take on myself. I don't have to survive my past, I just have to survive the moment. Right? And so we started getting into that even deeper and started to really understand, who am I? Where am I? And what's my relationship while I'm seated in self to all the crazy, including all the crazy in my past. Not just the crazy that's going on now, but how to survive the crazy of what was. And it was in that, dissecting that part, where I started to really understand where I am, where my mind is. Is it attached to the past, to the present, or to the future, to where I'm going, right? And that was all part of discovering our North Star and all of that, in where we're going. And that my first North Star was joy, right? To just liberate myself from the past. But it was in that moment that I discovered in time where I am, and that all I need to do to survive my past was to get fully present to today, to now, right? And then it was in that, right, and continuing on and unpacking that even more, that I started to know what I know on my own say-so, not dependent upon the knowing or the co-signing of others. I know what I know. Remember that video, Know Your Name? I had to trust in what the information that I was receiving, that it was in fact true. And while yes, I had to go and check it with other people and make sure that it still made sense, it was in that learning to trust myself and know my name. What's my name? My name is Dale. How do I know that? I know it because I know it. On my own say-so. I know it. I know that's true for me. And developing a relationship with self where that level of trust can be absolutely brought into a knowing and a certainty that you yourself give yourself permission to know what's true for you. And that was a really important step in that process. The next step that we started to really getting into was duality. Oh, right? Remember that? The duality of good and bad and right and wrong. And that all we need to do to get out of the ego mind is to drop the construct, and that's what it is, a thought construct of good and bad. And the duality found in the push and pull of good and bad and good and bad, and where that happens. And that to get out of the duality of good and bad, all you have to do is drop the bad. Bad is a mental construct. Evil doesn't exist in nature. Evil only exists in the mind of man. Fear, only exists within the mind that creates it. It exists nowhere else. Evil doesn't exist in nature, but evil does exist in our books, in our stories, in our religions. All of our religions teach evil, do they not? What would happen if we stopped teaching evil? If that thought construct of evil disappeared and we decided as humans to only exist in a world of love and high vibration? That's when it was like, oh wow, this is really starting to get big, when you realize that you can leave the duality of good and bad and right and wrong. That you don't have to get to where you're going using the low, dense vibration stuff. That you can seek to live your life in high vibration only, and that you can achieve what it is that you want to achieve in the unity of love without devolving into the duality of good and bad. Right? So we spend a lot of time on that and our energy footprint in terms of what we're bringing into the world. Am I bringing high vibration into the world, or am I bringing low vibration and density and ick and ego and strife? Where are you with that in terms of what you're bringing into the world, in terms of what you're sending downstream on social media, right? And then we got into what is, right? Again, it's finding the unity of what is and not letting what was color what is. The past can never be brought into the now. The knowing, right? When somebody's really egoic, so wow, the ego on that person. What is the energy signature of the ego? I kind of accidentally said it when I was describing my brother and his association with his religion. The energy signature of the ego is certainty. Watch that. Watch how certain somebody is in their opinions. That's where you'll find the density of the ego. Certainty. And how certain somebody is in their personal convictions is where the ego lives. So if we're watching for that, when somebody's absolutely certain and they're not fluid in their thoughts or in their ability to process new information, then that's where the ego is. Finding what is requires us to give up what was. Even in terms of what we supposedly know from the past, things we have learned from the past, letting that knowing color the now. Again, the formula for a successful and loving life is not letting what was color what is. Again, I use that relationship with my mother. I have a lot of, reasons for justified anger. How much work did we do in here on justified anger? Again, you can't participate in the crazy without being crazy. You can't participate in right and wrong without participating in the ego. Finding what is the portal to a completely different way of life. It's the evolution of what we know and thinking versus who we are and being. The evolution of the human spirit happens right there, where you stop thinking and start being. Abandon thought, all of it, especially anything tethered to the past. All of your pain will be shown to you through the lens of what happened, the past. Because again, the information comes into us and then the mind parses it out into good and bad and right and wrong in order to just understand itself through differentiation. So we can't live there where thinking and thought happens. We have to live in the space of being. being in the moment as it is, as it truly is, without us coloring it from something that we know, right? We have to abandon thought, abandon thinking, abandon the ego in order to get fully present to what is today. That's where your freedom lies. Again, you're not trying to survive your past. You just have to survive the moment, the current moment, the present moment, which is what is. And in that place, when you live in the present moment endlessly, over and over and over and over again, this is the present moment, 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 and you're just in a state of being rather than in a state of thinking, that's when we start to discover where we are truly unwounded from the past and unwoundable in the present moment, because we're not allowing our imaginations and our egos to co-opt one another to harm us. We can't do that anymore. It's too terrorizing. It's too difficult, right? Abandon the past completely. Don't ever, ever, ever go there with your mind. It will harm you because that's where all the lack lives. Once your mind processes whatever it has received, it will say, okay, this is love, and this is lovelessness, and this is the continuum of love. But you can't look at that without experiencing pain because it's showing you lovelessness in order to understand itself, right? So don't go there. To go there is to harm yourself. We're not doing that anymore. To find the space of living endlessly in the present moment is where you are unwounded and unwoundable. That's being master and commander of you, because you're not just being a passive, participant in what's happening in your mind, which is harming you, right? After that, we started to really identify the enemy. What is the enemy for all of mankind? The enemy is illusion. Illusion of what has happened, illusion of the past, illusion of things you think you know that you want to bring in today in order to start a fight, in order to live in a space of attack thoughts, right? Because you know things, you know what's right? You know what's right for you. No. See, once we get into certainty and knowing, that's when we bring in lovelessness and crazy. So understanding that the illusion is the past, that the enemy is, right, anything that has gone on, anything that we want to think that we know or want to bring into the now in order to be right. That's the hardest part about giving up illusion, is that you can never be right. But it also means you can never be wrong. Right? But our ego is so excited and so loves being right that it's hard to give up the duality of good and bad and right and wrong, right? In order to just be and be present. So once we know that the enemy is illusion, then we started talking about breaking the cycle by not participating in the illusion, by not participating in what society requires of us, which is anger and frustration, right? Our entire Western world is built up on the concept of good and evil, right? Of good and bad and right and wrong. It's all egoic, right? There's no just being and loving and being in a sense of, wonder with the world and embracing all, right? That's super fringe, right? Right? But in order to break the system, in order to break this cycle of good and bad and right and wrong and good versus evil, which all our religions teach, right? We have to first of all find out how to break the system, and it all begins with little old me. It all begins with me dropping my weapons and finding and locating myself in space and time. How we do that like I started to unpack that a little bit in the time traveler's map. Remember in that last video? Let's say that, let me just grab something here. Okay. Let's say that this is the present moment. This envelope. Okay? This envelope is the present moment, and everything that has happened in the past, we abandon completely. And everything that's happening in the future is where we're looking, right? So we're not peeking back here in the past where, oh, look, it's all dark. No, we're looking here in the future where, oh, the lighting worked out. Okay, great. Yay. Videos on a budget. Okay. So everything that's back here in the past, right? We can tether our mind, and she did that, and he did that, and then can you believe it? And then that's what happened. And then what I know what happened with that. I know, so that's all things that has happened that's going on in the past. In the future, we're looking at, okay, I'm looking forward to selling 1 million copies of my book by the end of next year. I'm looking forward to $1 million coming into my bank account, right, by the end of next year, right? And while that might just be false and illusion, what is my mindset, right? Like that last video that I was doing, and I started talking about my past and where I've been, and I can't go there without triggering myself, right? Because like a lot of triggering things have happened to me. So if I know that, and again, in processing our trauma, we do not have to go through that entire process and unpack it. I had to do it for myself in order to better understand where I've been and where I'm going, right? And you can go back and watch all those videos of me processing all that trauma. Oh, to the internet. Oh, seems like a good idea. Which is fine too. But you can see how, when I tether my mind to what was, I will experience unhappiness. When I tether my mind to where I'm going, when I use my imagination to create and dream about where it is that I'm going, and I'm calling it into existence, right? Using my words by looking into the future and using my imagination there versus using my imagination to ruminate over what happened and how angry and bitter I can be, right? So it's in understanding the time travel and where we place our mind that greatly affects our ability to create and manifest the future, as well as just be happy and lit up throughout the course of the day. Don't worry about the past. Let it go. Let it all go. Keep your mind right here in the middle, in the present moment, endlessly, 1 second after another, after another, after another. I promise you, no matter where you've been or what you've experienced on planet Earth, that there is happiness for you, that there is unity for you, so long as you stay present to today. Let everything else go, and know that when you're in your room and you're experiencing any kind of fear or pain, unless you're currently having a crisis of some kind, but if you're not having a crisis of some kind and you're just sitting in your bedroom or your living room experiencing fear or pain, that is optional. That is you using your imagination to harm yourself by ruminating on lack that has happened in the past. Don't do that. Don't ever go there. Learn how to get more present to your life, because that's there that you'll unshackle yourself from all of your burden and troubles. I promise you, it's just that simple, right? So when we get present to today and look forward to where we're going, we can light ourselves up and learn how to fix ourselves. I hope that this was helpful, just taking a little bit of journey through all of the videos and where we've been and how we've arrived to this point, because it's really starting to get good for me. I'm really starting to figure out how to fix myself and how to live a life where I can fulfill myself and stay seated in joy, right? Because I know what's coming up, and I know that everything is, in fact, in good care. That's where we are today. I hope that that was helpful for you, and I will see you next time. Thanks. Bye.